They erased it, the footage that no one was supposed to see. I know exactly why they did it, because what was captured that night wasn't just a performance. It was something darker, something that should have never been recorded. You're about to hear a story that no one else will ever tell. What happened backstage at the Super Bowl that year. It's not just a secret. It's a nightmare they've tried to bury, and I was there to witness it. I saw things, heard things that I can't ignore any longer. It's time you knew the truth. But it's not over. The worst part is still coming. The cold is what I remember most. The cold that hit me as soon as I stepped backstage. It wasn't just from the air conditioning, but something else. Something unnatural. That night wasn't supposed to end the way it did. I should have stayed in the background, done my job, and kept my mouth shut. But I couldn't. I couldn't ignore what I saw. I'm not supposed to be telling you this, but here I am, breaking my silence because the truth is worse than I could have imagined. It wasn't just the performance that the world saw that night, what they erased, what they tried to make disappear, was something far darker. And I was there, I saw it, and now I have to tell you. It was a few years ago. You know the night I'm talking about? The Super Bowl halftime show. The one with the star everyone knew, the one with the music, the lights, the energy. You saw it on TV. But what you didn't see was what happened in the back. I had just started working in production, so I was just another face among the thousands that keep these things running. I was small, inconspicuous. No one noticed me. I could have gotten lost in the shuffle. But that night, I couldn't. I remember the hum of the lights, the echo of footsteps on cold cement, the hustle, the rush, the endless preparation. But something felt off. The air in that place was thick, and not just from the crowd noise. No, it felt like there was something beneath the surface. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it gnawed at me. Something pulling at the edge of my awareness. It wasn't until later that I realized I was already too far gone to escape. Backstage wasn't glamorous. Well, not for us. It was organized chaos, with people running in and out. Some of them, too, focused on their own little worlds. But I remember that moment when the star of the show, Jennifer Lopez, finally arrived. Everything seemed to freeze, like the world was holding its breath. The crew around her, they straightened up. It was like watching a performance backstage. But something about her felt off. And that's when I noticed it. I shouldn't have been anywhere near her, but I was. I was working a backstage camera, and I had a view I wasn't supposed to have. A view into the mirrors. It was subtle at first, a feeling more than anything. But when I saw her step in front of the mirror, just adjusting her makeup, casual, I saw it. Her reflection didn't move right. It was like the mirror wasn't quite showing her. Like it was showing something else entirely. It's hard to explain. I can't. But I can never forget the way her reflection didn't match her. There was something wrong. And then she caught me. Her eyes flicked to the mirror. Just for a second. And for a moment, I swear it wasn't her. It was something else. Something that didn't belong. She was smiling. But it wasn't a smile. It was too wide, too knowing, too much. And then, just like that, I was gone. She turned back, as if nothing had happened. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had. At that point, I should have walked away. I should have kept my head down and pretended I didn't see what I saw, but I didn't. I tried to tell someone, one of the senior crew members, but the moment I spoke, they shut me down. Just focus on your work, they told me. Forget it. But I couldn't. The feeling, the weight of it all, kept me up at night. The moment replayed over and over again like a glitch in my mind. But I let it go. I had no choice, right? The show went on. The music, the lights, the cameras, the perfect image of a flawless performance. The world saw Jennifer Lopez shine. Flawless as always. But backstage, the cold, the feeling I can't describe, never left me. Then something happened. It wasn't until after the show, when everything was winding down, that the team started talking about the footage. At first, I didn't understand. They kept talking in hushed voices about how the footage didn't come out right. But it wasn't until I overheard the conversation in the control room that I realized what was going on. They were talking about erasing everything. I thought it was just the normal procedures, cleaning up footage, fixing errors. But no, this was different. They weren't just erasing anything. They were wiping all the cameras, even the backups. And when they realized I had access to some of the footage, they made sure I deleted it. They insisted. "You didn't see anything," one of the senior crew members told me, his voice low, threatening. "Delete it. Now." And I did. I didn't want to, but I did. That's when the unease turned into something much darker. They kept saying the footage was corrupted, but I knew it wasn't. It was real. What I saw on those cameras wasn't supposed to be there. It wasn't just a reflection of Jennifer Lopez. It was something else. It was something trying to come through, and they didn't want anyone to see it. I tried to forget it. I tried to move on. But the truth is, I couldn't. No matter how much I wanted to, the memories of that reflection, the way it wasn't her, haunted me. Now, as I'm finally speaking out, I feel the same chill running down my spine. That feeling hasn't left me, and every time I pass a mirror, I wonder if it's watching me, waiting. There's so much more to this, more than I can even say. I've kept quiet for too long, but now I have to say it. The truth is far darker than anyone could imagine. And it's still out there, waiting for the right time to come to light. But before I go any further, let me tell you what happened next. The moment I stepped into the backstage area, everything felt too perfect. The lights were soft, casting a cozy glow on the polished floors, and the hum of conversation mixed with the sound of equipment being moved. Rhythmic, rehearsed. It was like a movie set. Too smooth, too controlled. The air was cool, not cold. The scent of makeup, hairspray, and something sweeter. Maybe flowers in vases near the entrance. Everything screamed order. The walls gleamed white, the navy curtains blocking the harsh lights but adding warmth. Every object had its place, nothing out of line. I didn't question it. I was here to work. I moved through the hallway, slow, listening to the occasional shuffle of feet and the distant roar of a stadium waiting for the show to begin. The smell of fresh bread from the catering table reminded me of home, of simpler things, but the faint hum beneath it all kept me on edge. I adjusted my bag strap and stepped further in. The hallway stretched longer than expected, more like a tunnel. It should have felt cramped, but there was an odd openness. passing doors with stars, names, or hotel-like labels. There was no rush, no urgency, just whispers, muted as if the air itself dampened the sound. It should have been calming, but something was off. The air felt dense, heavier than it should be, as if the place had been drained of life and only its still remnants remained. Not a creak in the floorboards, not a misplaced chair. Everything aligned, but something wasn't right. I rounded a corner and faced a row of mirrors, huge, ornate, gold-framed. The mirrors reflected the soft light in a way that was almost hypnotic. I stared at them for a moment. They were too clear, too perfect. I shifted uncomfortably, reaching for my bag strap again, but couldn't put my finger on why the reflections felt wrong. As I moved deeper into the building, I noticed the strange silence. There were people around, but it wasn't the usual backstage buzz. It was like they moved in slow motion, too aware of themselves, careful not to disturb the stillness. Conversations were muffled. There were no bursts of energy, just a calm, controlled hum. Everything felt deliberate. I entered a larger dressing area. Crew members scrambled, but again, everything was too perfect. The mirrors on the walls reflected their movements, too perfectly, like copies, not reflections. The faint hum of a far-off speaker echoed, but it sounded distorted, hollow, trapped. I shifted, uncomfortable, and moved toward a back corner where a few people were gathered. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I felt pulled toward them. As usual, I tried to blend into the background, but this space made me want to become invisible. The crew was tense, not speaking, not making eye contact. They moved with intent, but lacked the usual pre-show buzz. Even Jennifer Lopez had arrived, but her presence lacked energy. She walked in smoothly, a perfect smile, but her eyes were empty. I noticed the slight tremor in her hands when she adjusted her jacket in the odd way her reflection in a nearby mirror didn't match her exact movements. A tight knot formed in my chest, though I didn't understand why. The silence felt heavy, oppressive, not because of the show, but something else, unnatural. The tension in the air was suffocating. I glanced around again, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the space was watching me. The walls buzzed, the mirrors, once perfect, now felt like eyes, tracking every movement. And then, in the reflection of one mirror, someone stood in the doorway, but no one else seemed to notice. The air was thick, suffocating. The ground beneath me felt uneven, as if the building's foundation were unstable. I wasn't sure what I was searching for, but I couldn't stop myself from looking. I didn't want to stay, but some force was pulling me forward. I was in too deep. And then the door slammed shut behind me. The longer I spent in that backstage area, the more the air felt like it was pressing in on me. What should have been a typical work environment, chaotic but thrilling, was starting to feel suffocating. At first I thought it was just the tension of the show, the nerves, but no, this was different. The building was too quiet, too calm, and yet there was something wrong about the stillness. A feeling that crept under my skin and made every breath a little heavier. I was standing near the catering table, pretending to be busy, when I noticed her, a guest, someone I didn't recognize. She was standing by one of the doors, just staring into the hallway. I couldn't see her face clearly at first. I only caught a glimpse of her eyes through the crowd. But when our gazes met for that split second, I felt it. It was like she wasn't looking at me, but through me. Like she could see something that wasn't there, something I couldn't understand. She didn't blink. She didn't move, just stared. It was a weird, unsettling moment, and it only lasted a few seconds before she turned away, melting into the crowd of staff. I didn't know why, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was warning me. That look, it wasn't like any look I had ever seen before. I tried to dismiss it. After all, she was just a guest. Probably didn't even know what she was doing. But as I walked past the hallway, heading toward the dressing rooms, I felt the weight of her stare still on me, like I was being watched from the shadows. It shouldn't have bothered me, but it did. Something about that encounter felt wrong, and I couldn't stop replaying it in my mind. That was when I noticed the door. It wasn't marked like the others. No fancy label or sign. Just a plain white door at the end of the hallway, but it stood out to me. There was something off about it. It looked too ordinary compared to everything else around it. There were no security guards near it. No one standing watch. The other doors had guards posted, but this one was left completely alone. At first I thought it was just another storage room, something mundane. But as I got closer, I noticed that the handle was odd. It wasn't locked with a standard bolt or latch. It had one of those security locks that only certain people were allowed to open. The kind that required a special key card or a passcode. Yet no one seemed to acknowledge it, as though it wasn't even there. I tried to keep moving, but the door seemed to draw me in. There was something about the way it didn't fit with the rest of the space. All the doors were either open or manned by security, but this one, it was too normal, too plain, too unseen. I glanced around, wondering if anyone else had noticed, but everyone else was either too busy or too focused on their tasks. No one even spared the door a second look. It was like it didn't exist at all. Still, I couldn't shake the curiosity. Why was this door different? I walked away, but the feeling didn't leave me. The more I tried to ignore it, the more it lingered in my mind. I could feel its pull, like the door was calling me, pulling at something deep inside, but I had no time to figure it out. I had a job to do. I continued through the corridor, trying to distract myself, but that's when I noticed something even stranger. The crew. They were all moving in a strange rhythm. It wasn't natural. It was too rehearsed, too deliberate. No one seemed to be talking to each other. They walked in sync, heads down, their movements mechanical. I tried to talk to one of them, just a quick question about a lighting setup, but they barely acknowledged me. It was as if I didn't exist to them. Their eyes were fixed forward, their focus so intense that they couldn't even spare a moment to glance at the person right in front of them. It was unsettling. I brushed it off, telling myself it was just the nerves, the intensity of the night's performance. But as I walked deeper into the heart of the backstage area, I saw Jennifer Lopez. Or rather, I saw the way she was acting. She was standing in front of a mirror, adjusting her hair. But her face, there was something wrong with it. She wasn't smiling like she usually would, wasn't radiating the energy I expected. Instead, her expression was blank. She looked tired, distant, like her body was there, but her mind was somewhere else. The most unsettling part? She wasn't moving, not really. She would lift her hand, but it would linger in the air for just a second too long, like she wasn't sure what to do next. Her reflection, though, was different. It didn't match the movements of her body. Her hand twitched in the mirror, jerking unnaturally, and when she glanced at it, her face tightened, almost like she was angry or afraid. But the second she saw someone else approaching, she straightened up, her usual charm returning instantly. She smiled and greeted the crew with that perfect rehearsed politeness. But the shift in her demeanor was immediate, like she was switching masks. I don't know why, but it all felt off, like the persona she put out for the world wasn't really her. It was something else. It didn't take much to see it, but no one else seemed to notice. They were too busy setting up, too focused on the show to see what I was seeing. I tried to brush it off. Tried to convince myself it was just the pressure of the performance. But my gut told me something was wrong. She wasn't herself. And the way everyone around her was acting, their robotic movements, their avoidance of any real interaction, it wasn't just tension. It was something else. Something darker. I left the dressing room trying to clear my head. I passed by the locked door again. This time I stopped. I couldn't help myself. My feet dragged me toward it and before I even realized it, I had my hand on the door handle. But then, just as my fingers brushed it, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned quickly, and the moment I did, the door felt miles away. It wasn't just a door anymore. It was a barrier. My heart raced as I hurried away, trying to ignore the feeling crawling up my spine. I didn't want to know what was behind that door. But for the rest of the night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I couldn't stop wondering if it was really locked for a reason. The room felt like it was closing in on me. I don't know why I thought it would pass. This feeling that had been creeping up on me for hours, maybe longer. But it had to be nerves, right? This was just a big production, a massive show, and I was just an assistant. I had no reason to be in the center of all of this, to even question what was happening. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I walked through the backstage area again, trying to shake off that nagging sense of unease. It was late now, close to the end of the night. Most of the crew had scattered, heading home after the performance. The hallways were quieter than before. The sound of footsteps was muted. The only noise was the low hum of distant conversations, the occasional shuffle of someone dragging a cart or cleaning up leftover snacks. It should have been peaceful, finally a chance to breathe. But something in the air was off. It wasn't the air conditioning or the strange quiet. It was something else. The usual clamor of voices, the laughter, the excitement, all of it had drained away, leaving only a hollow emptiness that made every step echo unnervingly loud in my own ears. The lights overhead flickered slightly, just once, before they settled back into their usual hum. But that flicker wasn't normal. I knew that. The building was too quiet, too empty. The warmth from earlier had evaporated, replaced with a biting chill that ran along my spine and made my skin prickle. I pulled my jacket tighter, trying to ignore it, but I couldn't. I passed the locked door again, the one that had been bothering me all night. I told myself it was just another storage room, just another insignificant part of this vast space that I had no right to think twice about. But the closer I got, the more it seemed to loom over me. It wasn't right. I was drawn to it again, as if I had no control over my body. I glanced around nervously, hoping no one would see me standing in front of it. But when I reached for the handle, I felt it again, the hairs on the back of my neck prickling. My pulse raced. It was almost as if the door was alive, waiting for me, waiting for something. But before I could touch it, a figure passed behind me. I turned quickly, heart thumping in my chest, only to find no one there. The hallway was empty. I was alone, just like I had been, back when I first entered the space, and just like the last time I had stood before the door, there was no one else to see what I was feeling. No one else who seemed to notice the change, the growing tension in the air. I shook my head, frustrated with myself. This was ridiculous, but the unease wouldn't leave me. It never had. I forced myself to keep walking. I had a job to do. There were other tasks to finish. I didn't need to stand here obsessing over some locked door that was likely nothing more than a propped storage closet. But as I made my way down the hall, something strange caught my eye. A shadow darted across the wall, moving too quickly, too unnaturally. My feet froze, and I stared at the empty stretch of the corridor. No one was there, no one at all. But the shadow, the movement, lingered in my vision. I swallowed hard, trying to convince myself it was nothing. It was probably just a trick of the light, or a figment of my imagination. But the more I stared, the more it felt like something was wrong. Like I had just seen something that wasn't supposed to be there. I continued on, my pace quickening, trying to push the thought out of my mind. But it was there, gnawing at me, creeping under my skin. The hallway seemed too quiet, too long, too empty. I passed a few more doors and finally reached the makeup station, where the last few staff were cleaning up. The space felt different now. The lights were dimmer, the chatter softer. The energy had changed, and not in the way it should have. Everyone was moving slowly, deliberately. No one made eye contact. The atmosphere felt too heavy for something that was supposed to be winding down. Jennifer Lopez's assistant was there, folding up the last of the costumes. She glanced up at me, and when our eyes met, her face froze for a split second. Then she smiled, but it was stiff, too rehearsed. She turned away quickly and walked past me, her footsteps too loud in the silence. I watched her go, something stirring deep in my gut. I couldn't place it, but I knew. I couldn't ignore it anymore. She wasn't acting like herself. None of them were. None of us were. I took a breath, trying to shake the feeling. But when I turned back to the makeup table, something caught my eye. A glass, a half-empty glass sitting on the edge of the counter. I didn't remember seeing it there before. It had a strange, oily sheen to it. I leaned in closer, trying to figure out what it was, and that's when I saw it. In the reflection of the glass, I saw her number. It wasn't her. It was someone else. Someone standing just behind me, watching. I spun around, my heart racing, but the space was empty. Nothing but the faintest echo of a movement, a shadow in the corner of my vision. I reached out and gripped the counter, my fingers trembling. I could hear the hum of the lights above me, the faint noise of something in the distance, but the sound felt muffled, like I was hearing it through thick glass. I wasn't alone. Not here, not anymore. I wanted to call out, to scream, but I couldn't. I couldn't move. My chest felt tight, like something invisible was pressing on me, and then the door slammed shut. I jumped, heart pounding in my ears. The noise was so loud, so sudden that I thought it had to be real. But when I looked around, there was no one there. The door had closed with a force that shouldn't have been possible. I stared at the door, the same locked door. The same door that shouldn't have been able to move. Something had changed. The air was heavier now, thicker. Every breath felt labored, every movement slower. My hands were shaking as I wiped the cold sweat from my forehead. I had to leave. I had to get out of there. But I couldn't move. I couldn't stop staring at the door. And then it clicked. The door wasn't locked just for security. It was locked because something was behind it. Something that was waiting for me. I turned around, my legs barely carrying me, and I heard the voice, low, echoing from somewhere in the distance. A voice I recognized. "Don't go near that door." I froze. It was her assistant. But the way she said it wasn't a warning. It was a command. She was telling me not to make the same mistake. But I was already too far gone. This is just the beginning, though. There's much worse to come. I don't know when it started, when I first felt the shift in my mind. But as the hours dragged on, something inside me began to crack. I could feel it, like a fracture deep inside, just waiting to splinter. It was late, too late. The building had long since emptied out, but I was still there, still trapped in that cage of noise and lights and shadows. The production team had dispersed, but I couldn't leave. I wasn't ready to leave. Something pulled me back. Every time I thought about walking out, the feeling that something was wrong would tighten its grip on my chest. So I stayed. I don't remember when the silence hit. It wasn't sudden. It crept in gradually until the noises around me were distant echoes, shadows in the corners of my mind. But then there was a sound. Soft, almost too soft. A whisper, not in my ears, but inside my skull, like someone speaking from the inside out. I froze. It wasn't a voice I recognized. No one was around. But the words, they were unmistakable, chilling. "Don't look at her. Don't look at the mirror." I turned to the nearest mirror without thinking. My heart stopped in my chest. I saw myself standing there, my reflection staring back at me. Only, it wasn't me. The person in the mirror wasn't me. They were smiling, too wide, too unnervingly perfect, like something else was wearing my skin. I felt a cold shiver run up my spine. My breath quickened, and I could barely swallow, let alone look away. But I couldn't look away. My reflection, it tilted its head to the side, just slightly, as if it was trying to read me. Its eyes, they were empty, hollow. And there, in the corner of the mirror, just out of view, I could see it. The shadow moving. The thing behind me. I staggered backward, heart racing. But when I turned around, there was nothing. Just the empty room behind me. The quiet hum of the distant air conditioning. No one. Nothing. But my reflection, it was still there. Still smiling. Still watching. I blinked. The reflection blinked too. I spun on my heel, breathing hard, trying to force my mind to focus. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. But the way my heart was hammering in my chest told me otherwise. The whispers came again. Louder this time, clearer. They were coming from inside the room, not from my mind. "Don't look at her." I felt my hands tremble. My knees buckled slightly as I took another step back. I didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't want to be alone in this place where nothing felt right. That's when I saw the locked door again. It was like it was calling me, pulling me in. And yet, I couldn't go to it. I had to get out. But my legs moved, step after step, toward the locked door. I knew I shouldn't. My mind screamed for me to stop, but I couldn't. I reached out to touch the handle. It felt warm, unnaturally warm, like it had been waiting for me to touch it. My skin tingled with the sensation I couldn't place, like the door itself was alive in a way it shouldn't be. And then, from behind me, I heard the sound again. A soft shuffle, a breath. It was the sound of something or someone moving toward me. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as I twisted around, terrified. But again, there was nothing. Nothing but the same empty hallway. The same polished floors, the same sterile air that smelled faintly of perfume and anxiety. But I felt it. I knew it was there. I tried to focus, but the tension in my chest was unbearable now. It felt like my lungs were being squeezed, like my brain was slowly suffocating in the darkness. My reflection in the glass was still there, but it wasn't me. It couldn't be. My own face, my own eyes staring back at me like a mask, an imposter. The voice whispered again, now much louder. It's too late. You've already seen too much. The air felt thick, suffocating. The shadows in the room seemed to stretch and writhe as though they were alive, curling around the edges of the walls, pulling closer, inching toward me. I could hear the faintest rustle, like fabric dragging on the floor behind me. But when I turned to look, nothing was there. My breath came in sharp gasps, too fast, too shallow. My hands were slick with sweat, but I couldn't stop them from trembling. No one will believe you. The voice was louder now, clearer. It wasn't a whisper anymore. It was right behind me, as though it was coming from inside my skull. She's already gone. It's just you now. It's always been just you. I spun around again, my head spinning, my heart threatening to burst from my chest. I was suffocating, drowning in the thick, oppressive air of the room. But when I looked into the mirror again, I saw it. Her. It wasn't Jennifer Lopez. Not anymore. She stood there, reflected in the glass. But she wasn't moving. She wasn't real. Her eyes were wide open but empty. Black. Hollow. Her body was still, unnaturally still, and the expression on her face was blank, like she was waiting. Waiting for something. For someone. I could barely breathe. My chest constricted. She was... No, it wasn't just a reflection. It was watching me. It was in me. I stumbled back, my mind racing, my heart thrumming in my ears. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. But every part of me was telling me it was. Telling me I wasn't safe, that something had crossed the line, that something else was in control here. I turned away from the mirror, my skin crawling. I had to get out of there. I had to leave, but my legs wouldn't obey. I couldn't even move. The door was right there, but it might as well have been miles away. You can't leave, the voice whispered. It's too late now. I reached for the door handle again. My fingers brushed the surface. It was cold now. Cold and wet, like it was sweating, like it was alive. And as I touched the handle, I heard it. The sound I'd been dreading. A faint click, The door unlocked. I didn't have the strength to move. I couldn't move. My body was frozen, like I was rooted to the spot, but my mind was racing, spinning faster than I could catch up. I could still feel the cold from the door handle in my palm, still see her face, her eyes wide and vacant, staring at me from the mirror. She wasn't just a reflection anymore. She was real. She was here. The silence was deafening. I couldn't even hear my own breath until suddenly it came rushing back, harsh and ragged, like I'd been holding it for too long. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. My legs were numb, too heavy to move. What the hell was happening? Was this some kind of sick joke? Some twisted nightmare that I couldn't wake up from? I blinked, but the image didn't change. It was still standing there. It wasn't just a reflection anymore. It was in the room with me. The air was thick with something, fear, dread, a weight pressing down on me that I couldn't explain. The walls felt like they were closing in. I couldn't move, not forward, not back. The thing in the mirror, it wasn't me. It wasn't anything I knew. My reflection had never looked so wrong. I wanted to look away, but my eyes were glued to her. I wanted to scream, but the sound wouldn't come. I couldn't tear myself away from the image. The horror of it. Her standing behind me, her eyes following me. She wasn't real. She couldn't be real. I had to be imagining this right. I felt it, my pulse quickening, my breath shallow. The panic in my chest was building. Was this what she wanted? Was this how it was gonna end? Number. I had to move. I had to get out of there. But the fear kept me rooted to the floor, my body fighting me. Every muscle screamed for me to run, but my mind was unraveling, unable to process what I'd seen. How much of it was real? The door, it was right there. It's locked. I couldn't think straight. I needed to get out. I needed to escape. My eyes darted around the room, looking for something, anything, to make sense of what had just happened. The door. It was still there, but the handle. The same handle that shouldn't have opened, that should have been locked, but it had opened. A flicker in my mind. The same flicker that happened when the reflection moved. That strange feeling that something wasn't right. That everything I thought I knew was starting to bend. It wasn't just the lights or the flickering sounds anymore. It was me. My reality was bending, and I was trapped inside of it. I could feel my heart racing, each beat thudding in my chest like a drum. My vision was narrowing. The room seemed to close in even tighter, the air getting harder to breathe, like I was suffocating in my own terror. I could barely see, could barely think. And then I heard it again, the whisper. You shouldn't have come back. It wasn't in my mind this time. It was real. The voice echoed through the room, around me, as if it was surrounding me. There was no one else in the room. No one. Just me, standing there in the suffocating silence, fighting for air. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to face it. But I had no choice. I was in too deep. This wasn't a nightmare. This was real. This was happening. I finally forced my legs to move. It wasn't fast enough. I stumbled, my steps shaky, my hands shaking as I tried to grab onto the wall for support. I couldn't let it get to me. I couldn't let her, whatever it was, take control. I turned to run, but the door wasn't there anymore. It was gone. My breath caught in my throat. I spun around, panic seizing me, but the room was closing in on me, tightening its grip, and I couldn't breathe. The mirrors, they were all around me now, reflected in every direction. I couldn't escape them. I couldn't escape it. I reached out, desperate, my fingers brushing against the cold, smooth surface of the glass. And then something shifted. In the mirror, my reflection shifted. It was me, but it wasn't. I could see myself, my face, my real face, twisting into something else. A grin stretched across my reflection, but it wasn't my grin. It was wide, too wide. The smile stretched unnaturally, like it was being pulled, contorted into something grotesque. I recoiled, stumbling back. My breath came faster. The walls felt like they were closing in. I could hear my pulse in my ears, the sound deafening. No, no, no. But it wasn't just the reflection anymore. It was everything. The mirrors. They started to move. They weren't reflecting my movements. They were distorting, twisting. The room felt like it was shifting with them, bending at the edges, warping in a way that didn't make sense. Reality wasn't solid anymore. It was slipping. Everything around me felt off. The walls, the lights, the reflections, they weren't right. I grabbed the door handle again, desperate, but my fingers felt numb. Get out! Get out now! I tried to force the door open, but it wouldn't budge. It was locked again. I was trapped. The voice came again, low and steady. You can't leave now. Not after what you've seen. My legs gave out. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for air, choking on the terror that was flooding my chest. I could feel my mind fraying. The walls, the mirrors, the voices, it was all crashing down on me. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. I couldn't tell if I was even awake. I was losing it. I was losing myself. And that's when I saw her again. It. The reflection in the mirror wasn't me anymore. She was smiling. That same wide, impossible smile. She wasn't just there. She was here, in the room with me. She was watching me. And I knew, with every bone in my body, that I wasn't leaving. Not now. Not ever. I thought that once I left, it would be over. I thought the worst of it was behind me. But every time I close my eyes, I see her. I hear her. I hear the whispering in my head telling me I'm not safe, that it's not over. Maybe it never will be. I don't know what happened back there, what I saw, or what I felt, but I know one thing for sure. It hasn't let me go. And maybe it never will. I don't know how much of this is real anymore. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, I don't see myself. I see her standing just behind me, watching, waiting. I know she's still there. And maybe one day she'll step forward. Maybe one day she'll be me. And if that happens, you'll know. Because you'll see her too.